Who are the 4 pillars of the future of the UFC? So we're living in a fantasy world today, and if the UFC had to pick 4 people to build around and everyone else was cut from the entire roster for the next 10 years, who are those 4 guys the UFC would choose to build around?
You know what's crazy? After that Peyton Talbot loss, it really made me question if I know anything anymore. Because I guarantee you, if we did this video 2 weeks ago, he would have been number 1 on the pillar.
Yeah, he 100% is on this list. But now, he's gone. Just to Dagestan. He'll be back.
Send 2-3 years to Dagestan and forget, brother. Yeah, all right. So we did this pretty much like how I thought of it is who's most likely, who the UFC would want to be a pillar, who they're going to push, who has personality. I also split it up between weight classes because obviously you're not going to have 4 bantamweights as the pillar of the UFC.
Yeah.
It's going to be some heavier weight classes, some lower weight classes, and you kind of want someone who's maybe dominant.
And marketable.
Yeah.
One thing about my list that's really interesting that I just thought about, not a single American-born fighter on my list.
Interesting.
Not a single one.
You know, so we're definitely gonna have a different list because one of my picks, I picked him specifically because he was American.
Mr. America.
And I felt like they always are going to want a US champion, but we're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah.
Should we start off with our biggest pillar?
Yeah, like this guy is the face of the UFC. He is that Conor McGregor. He's that right now, that Alex Pereira, you know?
Okay. All right.
All right.
Let's do it.
My face of the future of UFC, the first pillar, Ilia Topuria.
All right. Who's the biggest? This is tough. I have Tom Aspinall as the biggest pillar.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Really?
I think what sells it for me is the longevity.
Okay.
He is going to be a staple of that division for probably 7 years, which is crazy longevity. He's 31 right now. I wrote down all their ages. So he's 31 right now. The only competition he has is Jones. Jones is 100% retiring within the next year.
Yeah.
So after that, I think Tom Aspinall has the clear-cut path to like stacking up championship wins, becoming the heavyweight GOAT. And one thing, again, that sold it for me is that the UFC is always going to want a heavyweight fighter who is super popular because heavyweight boxing was the biggest thing in 1970, 1980. And that kind of propelled the heavyweight division in MMA, but it's not the same.
No.
MMA heavyweight doesn't have the same skill that heavyweight boxing has. So I think that the UFC would really like to have a skilled heavyweight that they can kind of market as, you know, their big fight, you know, heavyweight headlining MSG. They love that kind of stuff because heavyweight sells. It's knockout power. And especially with Tom.
With Tom, you get that knockout power.
Yeah. And I think they have one thing that I wrote down for Tom is stat padding. He does have a couple stats that are just like out of this world, you know, the shortest average fight time, the least amount of time spent on your back. If you promote that stuff to casual audiences, they'll eat that up.
They're like, oh, this guy's unreal.
Exactly. It's such an easy thing to market on their fight promos.
The thing with Tom is that like he just has easy wins after easy wins lined up. And you can kind of play up the fact that like, no, these guys don't suck. It's just that Tom is that good. You know, he is by far the best. And like with his super short active or average fight time, like he's going to be able to just rack up. Like he could realistically fight 3 times a year as a heavyweight, which is pretty rare, you know?
Yeah.
You see those bigger weight classes, they're fighting once a year. Like he could fight 3 or 4 times in a year.
That's true.
If he's averaging 2-minute fight times.
And on the social media side of things, he does his own YouTube channels. He does his own Instagram stuff. Like he's active everywhere. And so he doesn't need that UFC marketing machine to push him. He'll do it himself, which I think is pretty valuable because you see a lot of these fighters like Paddy Pimblett and I'm trying to think of other like hyped up by the UFC. Paddy's the main one that I can think of right now.
Chewy.
Yeah, Raw Rosas Jr., but these guys are just pushed by the UFC themselves, and then it turns the fans against them. Whereas I think if you build it from the inside, like by the fighter for the fans, I think that's a little bit different, and I think Tom is doing that, and he's very smart. You know he's smart about building this YouTube channel. He obviously sees it as something that's very valuable. And yeah, so I think the fact that he's 31, has that longevity as a heavyweight, it's going to be the easiest one to predict for me as a pillar. So that's why I put him first.
Ooh. All right, I'm going to talk about Ilia Topuria, my future. I mean, what doesn't he have to be like the face of the UFC? And I think that the only thing that you could take him back from this is how long is he going to fight? You know, he's only 28 right now, and he already has 2 huge wins. And it's also at the same time, it's like, you're almost talking about like what more does he have to do? You're speaking of him like he's a 35-year-old champion. You know, he's undefeated, and who knows how long he has left in the featherweight division before, if he goes up to lightweight and beats Islam, it's like, what does he do there? I think that there's a chance that he could do three divisions.
It's possible.
It's definitely possible.
That'd be so hard. I think like Islam probably has the size for it, you know, like to go lightweight, welterweight, and middleweight. He's already talking. He said in an interview he will 100% take a middleweight fight if they offer it to him, which is mad.
Right.
Like, that's 2 divisions.
Imagine jumping up 2 divisions first. Like, you go lightweight, middleweight, and then you're left to like drop back down to welter.
That's so weird.
No, but I think that Ilia, he's just so marketable. He is so marketable. And I think you get that very broad audience. You know, you're getting the people from America who are rooting for him because he might be the most entertaining fighter, you know, with just the brutal KOs. He might be the best striker in UFC history by the end of his career. And then you have his marketability over in Europe, in Spain, you know, huge market there that there's so much potential for, you know. And then you have Georgian. You know, like he just covers all the bases. You know, he's a Mr. Worldwide. He's basically Pitbull at this point.
The mountain men on the Georgia side.
You know, and he is so good at marketing himself too. He doesn't need this huge platform. He doesn't need the UFC help market. He is so marketable by himself. He is able to market himself. You know, we talk about the little things he would do on social media before the Volk fight, the little things he'd do on social media before the Holloway fight. You know, Topuria has embraced the villain. And you know what? It probably isn't the best thing to have a villain as the face of your company, but we've seen it time after time with the UFC, with Conor as your face. I think when by the end of his career, he was very much a villain. You know, we have John Jones, who, from a public perception, very much a villain. Yeah. You know, even at one point, Habib was considered to be a villain. You know, he was the bad Russian guy, you know, and as much as we have grown to love him now and respect him, but like the UFC's not scared to have their top dog be this villain compared to like where if you look at other sports, you want the good guy, you want the person doing all this good stuff, and Ilya's not a real bad guy. He just is playing the villain because he knows that that's what's going to make him more money.
It sells.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever feud he's in, whatever rivalry he's in, he's all right to be that villain because he knows it's going to make him more money, and like he just has every single thing needed to be the face. It's just going to be how long does he fight for? Even if we get 5 years out of him.
That'd be good.
Exactly. That's 10 more fights.
I think the UFC would be happy with that for sure.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think that was the other person who I was picking between for the face of the UFC. I was picking between Ilya and Tom. Ilya just has that unknown factor. So should we move on to our
second guy?
Our next pillar. So I'll talk about Ilya. You just talked about him. 28 years old. The main thing I wrote down for him is the star power. It's the biggest thing that he has on his side. He's marketable. He's good looking. Exciting fights is guaranteed.
Blaze.
He is. Great fight promo. And he has the skills to back it up. You know, at the end of Conor's career, he had great fight promo. But then the fights were like, you know, first 2 rounds were good. And then after that, it's like, Conor just gasses out. He's super young. So he still has, I wrote down 6 years of his prime, which if he fights on average 2.5 times per year, it's 15 fights, which would be really great for the UFC.
30. No, sorry.
15 title defenses.
Yeah. And he's 15-0?
16-0. Maybe 15. No, 16. Yeah. After the Holloway win, 16, I think, right?
No, I think he was 14 after Volk. I think he's 15 now.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's an odd number now. It's either 15 or 17.
Okay, well, that's 15 because he's not 17.
Yeah. So 30-0.
It would be unreal if he went 30-0.
With over 20 of those fights being in the UFC.
Yeah, that's crazy. Khabib could never. No. Anyways, he's in a competitive division, which is like maybe a detriment, the fact that he could get, you know, that throne stolen from him, unlike Tom. But it's also a good thing because that means there's always going to be skilled fighters coming up in the rankings, like Gene Silva. So it's not going to be like heavyweight where It's like, oh yeah, Tom's just gonna KO this guy in one round. It's like, oh no, Gene Silva could really win this fight, or Movsar could really win this fight. It's always gonna be more exciting, in my opinion. It's also a lower weight class, so it's going to be more skilled fights compared to heavyweight, which I like. He also has the possibility to move up in weight classes to make history and make the UFC super fights, because Tom can't provide super fights. He cannot move divisions. It's only if someone from light heavyweight moves up, which is no control of Tom's. Ilya, on the other hand, he can provide super fights, and it's clear he wants to provide super fights. He also has the support of Spain and Georgia, like you said. So he literally has the whole world, and I think the UFC moving forward is going to want that worldwide base as they expand into more regions and do more fight nights and pay-per-views in different areas. The villain obviously is a huge thing. That's always, you need someone to play the heel in a build-up. You just need it, and he's not afraid to play it. And undefeated, which is a selling point for casual audiences. I don't expect that to last for the next 5 years. But for as long as it lasts, it's a great piece of promo.
Exactly.
You know? And it's like, who can beat the undefeated fighter? It's always
and then
gonna
like
sell.
the second someone beats them, it's like
rematch.
it's like the whole world's gonna stop for a second.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, my next pillar. You know what? No, I will talk about a different guy. I was gonna talk about someone else, but no. My second pillar. This is where I have Umar Nurmagomedov.
Okay.
I know he's coming off that loss to Merab, but the dude's only 28, and just because his last name's Nurmagomedov doesn't mean he was gonna go undefeated in his career.
Khabib set the standard too high.
Yeah. I think that we have these guys who are in the UFC now where they get a loss early on or at some point in their career, and it's like, oh, they suck. They're terrible. It's like, there's one guy that's undefeated, and that's Khabib and, Jones.
Yeah, Jones-ish.
Ish. But every other guy, they've lost fights. You look at Islam right now. He lost a fight early on. He got his butt knocked out early on.
Yeah, he did.
It's just part of being a mixed martial artist. You're going to have a night in your career. If you fight in that octagon 30 times, one time you're not going to have your A game, and one time someone's going to get some lucky shot on you.
Yeah.
So we need to stop griping on these fighters for having one loss. If it's consistently, sure. But when you have one loss, it's like, oh, this guy's bum, washed,
Yeah.
The way that like the UFC, like on the rankings, they even just moved him down. Like Peter Yan, put him above. They haven't fought. Why is Peter Yan above Umar?
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I think with Umar, it's pretty obvious why the UFC would want to build around him. It's spelled Nurmagomedov.
I was like, there's no way you're actually spelling this. When she can spell Nurmagomedov perfectly.
Oh, she's cooked. She's in the streets. She's someone been around.
He can't even do that.
Yeah, if she could cooked. But like, I think with him is like, it's obviously going to be the longer you can keep Umar at the top, you're also getting Khabib inside the UFC too. You know, you're getting to be able to market around Khabib. Khabib is as a coach, and it's funny. They almost talk about Khabib just as much as Umar when Umar's fighting. When Islam was fighting, they almost talked about Khabib just as much.
Yeah, Islam's made his own name for himself.
And it's not the same, but like they just still will always talk about it. After you see the videos of they have to hire a guy to hold down Khabib. Khabib's furious at Islam Makhachev. Khabib's furious at Umar Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
It's just you also get Khabib with them.
Right.
As long as that partnership goes as far as it does or goes on forever.
Yeah.
But Umar, 28 years old. He lost his fight to Merab, but 2 years' time, Merab is no longer champion. I think that at that point he's 37, 38, and in a low weight class, not looking good.
Nope.
And then from there, there's not a single person outside of Peter Yan that has the skill set to match up with Umar. 2 more years of Umar just getting to better himself. Unreal. It's interesting because I feel like these Dagestani fighters, they age like fine wine. They're getting better. They're not their peak by the time that they're 30. They're just gonna kind of keep slowly going up. They're learning more. They're diversifying themselves. We think about them as one-dimensional wrestlers, but how many of them still are one-dimensional wrestlers now? They're all so diverse, and we know that a guy like Umar in the future, 5 years from now, every single time they're going to Abu Dhabi for a pay-per-view, every single time they're going to Saudi Arabia for a pay-per-view, there's one guy that they're going to want to main event it, and it's going to be him. I mean, outside of Chimaev, but you just can't trust Chimaev to build a company around at this point. You know, I heavily considered him, but because he's only 30 still, but you just can't trust a guy like that to build your company on.
No.
You know, so he's going to be the one that's going to be at these pay-per-views who are going to be making the UFC so much money. You know, he has such a big market because obviously the UFC is trying to tap into that Saudi Arabian market. You know, we've seen it over the last 5 or so years. You know, he's going to be the guy at the top of those cards, and he's going to be the one that's going to be able to defend his belt. You know, there's also really good storylines. You know, whenever the Umar versus Sean O'Malley rivalry happens, the UFC is going to make it great. I think we even get it a couple years later. We'll do it again with Peyton Talbot. I think that's another rivalry, and who knows what else Umar could do. Would he ever go up? I don't know if he would go up to featherweight if Ilya's not there.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
Depends how dominant he is.
Yeah,
you know. I think also he's better for the American audience because he strikes. You know, he's not so much of a wrestler. He's more of a Muay Thai, but also has the Dagestani wrestling ability. I think that probably helps him out in terms of popularity.
He's definitely not a boring fighter, I'll tell you that.
No, super active. All right, well, I guess I'll move on to my next person, which is also Umar Nurmagomedov. I wasn't sure if you were going to have him because he did take that loss.
But he's still so good.
He's too good, especially in a lower weight class. I needed someone in either flyweight or bantamweight. And I couldn't really think of anyone who could carry flyweight other than Loner Kavanaugh, and I wasn't going to pick him. So Umar Nurmagomedov, he's actually 29 now. He just he had his birthday a little while ago.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, buddy. Anyways, yeah, it wouldn't be a pillar of the UFC without a Dagestani or Nurmagomedov. I think it's just such an easy progression because you had Khabib and he was, made so much money for them. I think the last name really helps him. I don't know if I would have put him on this list if he didn't have the Nurmagomedov last name, but you wouldn't have. It's such a marketability, like such a huge market because people, old heads, casuals, new fans, everyone knows the last name Nurmagomedov. Exactly. You hardly have to do any marketing yourself. It's like, hailing from the mountains of Dagestan, Khabib's cousin. It's like, oh yeah, that fight sells.
Yeah.
Also the longevity. He is a person who strikes me wanting to fight a long time. Islam's talked about retirement. Hamzat doesn't seem very likely to fight for a long time. Umar does. I think he will fight for quite a while. Ali Abdelaziz has talked about how Umar is going to go down as one of the greats because he's going to have so many championship defenses. That's not working out so far, but I think it will in the future. I think he's also still hungry. He wants so bad
he's going to come back
to make his name, I think he's probably a little bit embarrassed that he lost that fight because it is the first Nurmagomedov to lose a professional MMA fight, which is just absolutely wild. Absolutely wild, man. Usman, do you see the Usman fight?
Yeah, he
against Paul Hughes?
Yeah.
It's close. Really close.
I heard it was really good.
Yeah, it was a good fight. And even though he did lose to the champ, like you mentioned, he's by far still the second best fighter in that division.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And then the Sean O'Malley rivalry, that's going to be a huge, huge selling fight. You could really have that headline any pay-per-view, an MSG, a Saudi card like 308 was massive. You could do that. Yeah, I'm just excited for his future. I don't take away that much that he lost his first championship fight. I feel bad for him because you take one fight and you dominate Sandhagen, you move up to the second-ranked spot, all you have left is to fight for a title. Yeah. I feel like if he goes back down and fights the 7th and 6th and 5th ranked guy, everyone's going to be complaining. They're like, oh, this guy's just taking easy fights. But it's like, well, he didn't, he was rushed to the top. Yeah. So it's like, I feel bad, He does not have a good option here. It's either he fights the highest level guys when he doesn't have that much experience and risks taking more losses, or he builds up his confidence and fights lower down. So no easy path, but I do think with experience and Khabib on his side, he will be a force to be reckoned with for a long time. And hopefully he doesn't die from cardio training in the next couple of years. Because Khabib's got that whip on lock.
Yeah. All right, my next guy, a guy you've already named, means that we have the same 3 pillars, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have a different 4th.
We do.
All right, so my third one, Tom Aspinall. the interim heavyweight champion currently.
With one defense.
Yep. He's currently 31, but also at the same time, heavyweights, they can fight until they're old.
Yeah.
You know? And thing with Tom, Mr. Nice Guy, he's going to be the superhero, the good guy, the one that everyone's going to root for. You know? The UFC is going to be longing for a heavyweight villain to rival this guy against. You know? He's going to be DC if DC was actually the GOAT, you know? Captain, I mean, he's not American. Captain UK, you know?
He's the Clash Royale prince.
Yeah. You know, the UFC right now, they're just hoping Robelis to Spain has a good time in the GFL, come back, be the villain. Dude, Krabi come at 17-second knockout?
Cracked. I say bring him back. Give him one more chance.
Honestly, Dana, call him. Or else it's in the GFL.
I'd give him Pavlovich. Why not?
Pavlovich, no.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, but Tom, a lot of the similar things you said, heavyweight sells itself, you know, even if Tom isn't able to market himself or the UFC isn't able to market him the same way as the other guys that I've mentioned before, Umar and Ilya, he still has heavyweight, and that's what draws people in. You know, you have casuals who come in and they'll see, oh, heavyweight championship fight, let's go watch that. PFL heavyweight championship fight, Francis Ngannou. Oh, let's go watch that because people want to see heavyweight because in their minds heavyweight means giant KO. Even though outside of Tom it doesn't happen. Actually, it does happen when you're what's his name got that big KO. Oh, Jelton Almeida got the TKO over Sergey Spivak.
Huge.
But yeah, Tom has so many stats right now too, like that you're mentioning that really work in his favor. Yeah. You know, that shortest active fight time, like the way they can work that, is it gonna go up? Is it gonna go down? Yeah. You know, he gets like a 40-second go. No way, it's possible that his fight time goes down, you know? This kid is so good. Yeah. And he's just, I think a lot of it has to do with his character too. I just there's no fan that doesn't like Tom Aspinall. You know, he just seems like such a genuinely good guy who cares. And heavyweight, he's going to have longevity, and the division's full of fat plumbers, you know, who have no chance against him. Yeah. There were so many guys who have zero chance against Tom Aspinall. It's just, it's a lot of what you said, you know, heavyweight, good guy. Yeah. Heavyweight sucks.
Heavyweight does suck. And that's why I think he's going to be so long lasting, you know?
Oh, Stipe's, who beats him? Stipe's cooked. Like, Stipe's heavyweight GOAT. No longer. Yeah.
For our final pillar of the UFC, this is the one we're both least sure about.
Yeah, there was 3 solidified ones, and then I changed this 4th name like 100 times.
Really?
There were so many different guys I considered.
So my thinking was we need an American. There's a lot of talent from around the world, but the UFC, as long as it exists, is a US-based company. They're always going to want someone that the American dad can cheer for. And what's better than a true redneck, American champion who came up through collegiate wrestling and has a podcast with a bunch of white dudes? I'm talking about Bo Nickel. Bo Bickle, who's 29 years old. And here's what I wrote down. His best quality is that he's literally just a stereotypical American. You know, he's friends with Rogan and Trump. American dads are going to love that. And you know that for as long as the UFC's around, they're going to want a guy like that who America can root for because it is still their biggest market by far. And even though Bo is overhated right now, overhated, not overrated, 2 completely different things, I think he's going to grow on people similar to what Ian Gary's done. You know, when he starts taking good fights and really showing that he is actually impressive and skilled. This one is obviously the most risky because everyone else I mentioned is like a top contender, right? Or a champion. He's not even ranked yet. He's 7-0 in the UFC, so good record. I also think it's easier to pick it on someone like Bo because he has wrestling as a base, which is by far the strongest base. If you're picking like a striker like Peyton Talbot, there's always that chance they get fraud checked, you know, which he did. Yeah. With Bo, there's such a small chance that he's going to get fraud checked because you just shoot a takedown, you know, you just shoot a double leg takedown and you ride out the round. It's that simple if you're a wrestler. My one worry about him, though, is that he is extremely vanilla and has no personality. Oh. That's like the one thing that really worries me, is that he just is not going to be able to build a fan base, because outside of being American, he doesn't really talk about that much. But then again, like, there is still an audience for that, you know? There's a massive audience that's just not me.
This guy is so delusional too.
Oh, Bo?
Oh, he's so delusional.
You need to be, though.
You can be delusional without being delusional, you know? Confident, delusional. I open up as a -1,000 favorite versus Hamzat Chimaev.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
Hey, man, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't know. This one was tough because there's a lot of prospects. I did want to make a bolder prediction with a prospect, and Peyton Talbot was out of the picture for me, because if he gets out wrestled for 3 rounds by Raoni Barcelos, it's going to be a tough. Like, he has a lot to improve.
Yeah.
Whereas Bo Nickel has striking to improve, but he did outstrike Paul Craig. So, you know, Paul Craig was just outside the rankings a year ago. So whatever, you know, it is what it is. You can hate on that pick all you want, and I would agree with you.
All right, my 4th spot. It went through a lot of people. At one point, I had it as Chase Hooper, but then I was like, he's just not marketable. I actually at one point had Peyton Talbot in there, but I was like, I just have a little bit of a lack of confidence that anything can happen.
He's gonna pull Frank Ocean and disappear for 7 years.
I also considered Hamzat at one point. I wanted to get one of the welterweight like up and comers in there, but it's just like there's too many of them.
Who knows?
There's too many of them.
I did consider Carlos Prates.
I did, but 31, and I was like,
could get fraud check next fight.
Yeah. Ultimately, I went with a welterweight, unranked welterweight.
Okay.
North American born Mike Malott.
No, you didn't.
No, I'm kidding. I went with Shara Bullet.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. I went with Tatsuro Taira in flyweight.
Did you?
I did.
Okay, I thought about him.
I did. I don't know why. It was actually like a game time decision. It was right before we filmed. I still had Chase Hooper in there.
Bro, can we talk about Kansas City? Those fraudulent scammers.
Oh,
such bad calls.
I just don't care about. I'm not watching the Super Bowl. Actually, I'm gonna watch Kendrick.
Oh yeah, true.
But like, I'm just so mad that it's not Detroit.
Dumb. So dumb.
It's not Detroit. But yeah, Taira, more grand scheme of audience, you know? The UFC can go to a new place, you know? And with Taira, he did get that loss to Royval, but the game plan is there for Taira to by far be the best fighter in that flyweight division, you know? Especially 2 more years for Pantoja. It's going to be tough to see if he's still champion, you know? Another 2 years for a lot of those guys at the top. They're all a little bit older too, you know? And Taira, is he still like 26, right? I think
he's super young.
I think he's 26. And all he really needs to work on, obviously, the striking can always be improved, but just the striking defense.
Yeah.
The zero head movement.
Yeah, it's brutal.
He strictly has to work on that, because
he has a good chin though.
Yeah. And the thing is with him is that body lock and that ground game, when he's gonna be in control, he is gonna do that to every single fighter inside that flyweight division.
Yeah.
And you know what? As he progresses in the striking, it means that his fights are also going to get more entertaining.
Yeah.
You know? And the things with flyweight is that it's hard to have a 5-round lay fight just because they're so skilled. You know, they're so light and so skilled, you know. Going and being on your back and picking up 125 pounds, a lot easier than picking up 225 pounds, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
So for me with Taira, I was just kind of like, it was so tough to find someone. And I just think that the Asian market, what a great place to expand to, you know? We saw them go to Macau last year, and we've never really seen great Asian fighters, you know, inside the UFC, where we have this background, especially in Japan, of elite martial artists, you know? So why would we not want to expand into that market, you know? And Taira could be the guy to do it. I know he may not have as much personality as another Japanese fighter like a Kaya Sakura, but I think that over time you can help him build that, you know? And then eventually the inevitable like super fight of him versus Kaya Sakura like in Japan.
It'd be so hype.
Would be crazy.
The promo, like anime style promo you could make for that would
they
be
would
so
like
dope.
walk out and like in like armor. It would be so cool.
Yeah.
That is going to wrap it up for us today. I need all of you guys to go down to those comments and tell us who you think the 4 pillars of the future of the UFC should be. Do you agree with me and Lucas, or are we completely wrong in our thinking? While you're down there, you guys better be liking and subscribing because we really appreciate all the love, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.